Hello out there. We are three Black Pratt grads. I'm Greg Cleghorn, this is my bud Kenny Nelson, and Mr. Mark Skinner. Um, we get together weekly or every so often to talk about photography. We all love photography. We all graduated from Pratt Institute with Bachelor's in Fine Arts and Fine Art Photography. And Pratt in Brooklyn, New York, art school, Manhattan campus. But we just love photography. We get together and talk about it. So thanks for joining us. And I just wanted to make this topic. Do you guys have anything to say? Intro? No?
Go ahead.
No? All right. This time, there was a lot going on around the country, racially most motivated shootings. And it just made me think, what it means to be a black photographer. And it's like three black brown grads. Yeah, so what? What makes being black special, and being a black photographer? Is that something special, or does it matter at all? I just wanted to have a little discussion about that. And here we are, and I want to just talk about that. I'm a trained. I started out fine art, which was good. But I went to photojournalism for Navy, and for myself, I love street shooting. I love landscapes. I just love the whole package of photography. Um, but when I thought about, I was like, do I have an obligation as a black photographer to capture the black experience in America? Um, or just I've got a camera and I happen to be black. I just wondered about that. The gentleman that did the People of New York, the shooting all of the houseless people. um, you know uh, at face value you could say, oh, why is he shooting black people? But so what? I think all of us could share experiences of we just graduated Pratt. We've got shield on our chest and a cape, and you walk into Vogue, or I went to what was that guy, high power photographer, I forget his name. Went to his studio because I loved his work, and they kind of looked at me sideways. And I think one of you guys were telling me, and I've experienced it too. I went into an office, and the receptionist or the art director was white, and kind of asked sideways, well, why don't you go to like Essence or Ebony? Why don't you shoot for them? So it was kind of like, well, I'm a photographer, I could shoot anything, but the racial component of it, it was real. It was like in the 80s, 90s, and it's still happening today. It's something that I feel we could address. You sound great over the phone, but then when you show up and you're like, oh, you're Greg Cleghorn. Oh, that position's filled. We'll get back to whatever. But I shoot. And I love being out. I love photojournalism. So yeah, throw up the first image. Which one is that one? That's the. I forgot my.
That's
Oh,
the
I see them. Yeah, that. I was in L.A. walking around. It was kind of chilly, and I did a short series. I think I showed some of them in an episode before of how people protect their cars with those, tarps that cost, hundreds of dollars. And these houseless people were kind of um, covered. It was both poignant, and people driving by don't even look. And I mean, does this mean something to me as a black photographer? I mean, houselessness is a epidemic nationwide. But it just spoke to me. There was an artistic component with all the colors and the shapes and composition and all of that. But these are real people, and I feel it needs to be documented because when you're doing Kim Kardashian on the swimsuit issue, and well, how much does she make, or how much, billions for this and billions for that, but we have people, you know, moving on the street. Okay, next picture, please. So it's a black photographer. I could do, I love Georgia O'Keeffe's work, big flowers and colors and things that are pretty to the eye. And um, I had one of my video instructors told me it's like a Native American proverb. It's like, don't feel bad, or actually, your job is to share beauty in the world. So um, there's um, a Japanese phrase, wabi sabi, which is finding beauty in ugliness or in the unusual. So something that is not necessarily beautiful, in standard or typical social realms, could be beautiful to somebody else. So that's something. Go ahead. Next image, and this one kind of, it was one of those moments where you're driving and you're like, whoa, did I just see that? And I parked and jumped out the car and came back and I talked for a second. I actually spent time. Asked her if I could take pictures of her, and but by the time I got there, she had covered herself with that really dirty blanket. But she was having problems. She had some change, but she had like a meth pipe in her hand and a couple of dollars and a lighter, and she just looked awful. But she had on a happy shirt, and I'm like, what is wrong with this image? What is right with this image? Is she, you know, what is her deal? But who knows? Mental health, definitely a mental health issue. Things that now, do I have an obligation as a black photographer to document black people and show, the good and the bad of it? Mark does some beautiful images that you'll see, in a minute, of stylized, weddings, and they look great, and people, um, black people graduating from college, which is another great step. But I feel, I shoot pretty pictures, of people in events and stuff. I gotta dig up some images um, of weddings and such, and those moments are. And I just sometimes I feel obligated to document, do a Vandersea and go around black neighborhood and shoot uh, people that don't always make the news unless it's a tragedy or shooting or something. But I think for me, I think everyday life for Black people is important to be documented. The good and the bad, the whole human experience. But that's also why I shoot people of every nationality because, especially in New York, that's something. No matter where you go, you run into a New Yorker, you can almost talk to them like a brother or sister because it's a shared experience. And that's what I love about photography. And as a black photographer, I try to. You can drop that image, Ken. I can try to relate to all of the things that I see through my life experience or my social experience. And what does it mean for you, Mr. Nelson? I know I said a whole lot. Do you guys want to talk about the images at all, or?
Yeah, well, I sort of had some thoughts about your perspective on it, and I wanted to ask a question, but I actually forgot the question during the
I
thing.
I
So
did yakety a long
no,
time. So
I had it in, but I was trying to hold it until the end, but sort of, well, actually, the
write
question was,
write it down. Put it in
as a
chat. Go
black
ahead.
photographer,
Mhm.
you photographing the black experience, and where does the photographic the black experience come from? Does it come from the black community, or does it come from somewhere else,
Um.
or does it come from internally?
Uh. You know, it's some of each. Because sometimes I'm going, well, especially in Brooklyn, um, going down the street and kids will start mugging, or even adults. They're like, "Hey, what about me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, click, 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 click." Um, sometimes, other times I feel obligated because I mean, if not me, who? There's a short phrase about if not you, who? If not now, when? Um, or I'm gonna get deep. I'm gonna get Shakespeare. He's like, if it be not now, if it be not now, yet it will come. I forget, but the
If it's not now,
preparedness,
when? If it's not who,
when,
why,
but who?
who, or yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I feel bad. I memorized that thing. So much for memory. Okay, but yeah, that's it. It's partly that, and then socially, I mean, uh, when you show up and you start showing work, you're as a black photographer before anybody even sees your work, they're thinking, oh, maybe we'll see some ethnicity and such. So I'll do my, stylized images, but I usually always make sure to put in shots. I showed some at a gallery here. It's like a workshop gallery in Sacramento. And some of them were like, you know, heads, busts of people that folks normally don't get that close to. And they asked me, "Well, where'd you get that one?" I was like, "I was just walking around LA." They're like, "You must be pretty interesting to go shooting with you." I was like, that's kind of I took it as a compliment. But these folks, like that woman with the happy, happy, happy shirt, who would even want to go up and talk to her? Much less take her picture.
Hmm.
And it's kind of involved. It's like a 360. Go ahead. Sorry, I hope I answered your question. Oh, really chatty today. Pardon me. Mark, you
Okay.
still there?
Yeah, I was just wondering what you had three images. You talked about homelessness in two of them. Um, it's a pretty much a recurring theme for you. You're very interested in what's happening. Are you planning to do anything like a book of photos of the homeless, or some project to sort of explore what it means in the communities that you're working in?
I want to. Yeah. Once I start to organize my images that you guys said you would help me with, I do want to put the series of the houseless folks in a series. Yes, for sure. Um, and some. I mean, like that. I don't know. You guys remember that picture? There was a homeless guy in a staircase, a boarded up doorway into a church, but above it read, big block letters, said "believe," and that kind of was like, whoa. um, yes, I have plans on doing a series of them. Yes, that's a short answer. All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move along. Kenny, Mr. Nelson, what does it mean to you? Or does it mean nothing to be a black photographer?
Yeah, I think it means living your authentic self, whatever that may be. Um,
Ooh,
the life I live is the perspective of a black person. The experiences I have are of a black person. The places I go are not isolated just by black people. There, a smorgasbord of people have access to different places around the country and different places around the world. And so my experiences are going to be different than anyone else's, no matter what color they are. The question is who's around to see them and decide, and those decision makers that decide to use images for whatever reason, what's going to be that thing that piques their interest to make them pick your images out of the hundreds, if not thousands, of others that are being submitted to them. That is the question, right? Or what is their perspective on it? And that's the dilemma. And that's why I've always photographed for what I feel to be my own authentic self.
mm,
Because if I tried to photograph for anything else, I'd be chasing my tail and never catching it.
I'm faking the funk.
Yeah,
But
So
it's also, if I can interject, I mean, it's a thing of breaking barriers too. Now you're saying, and I liked it that I shoot because it's what I like seeing, you know. But just the traveling too. I think I mentioned that in the previous episode. Uh, there are there was a whole bunch of generations of black folks who fought so that we could ride a bus, and go, go down the highway or go to other states or travel and all of that. So, I mean, uh, yes, it's a unique viewpoint, and I love this Hoover Dam shot. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm chatty today.
And I put this in there because I think the Hoover Dam has become up in the news the past month or so, because Lake Mead is getting lower. And
Yes.
so they're facing the possibility of having, I think it's already 1,000 feet below the top or something like that.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
pretty low because
Lake Mead is
yeah.
gigantic. It's
So
yeah.
I just thought this was kind of an interesting thing to do because it's about being in the place at the time.
Yeah.
And though your image may not be relevant today or the time it was photographed, the relevancy for that image may come up at a later date. And so I thought that was interesting, being that the issues have always been about Hoover Dam. But if you look at the images and you look at the wall across the way, you notice that the water level is pretty high. Although it's not the highest, it is pretty high. And this level is not there anymore.
Right.
So yeah, if I had a second photograph and I was there recently, it would be a nice contrast. But it's not. But this is back in 2004.
Right.
So
That's Lake Mead.
that's Lake Mead. Yep. Yeah. So relevancy, time, with all in all due times, things happen. So.
But I like what you said. Also, because photography, like music, it kind of breaks barriers. It doesn't, like, looking at this picture, you can't say, "Oh, a black guy shot it," or "Oh,
right.
la, la, la. It crosses, like, art crosses barrier. All forms of art cross barriers, and I think that's an important distinction to make. Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is one of those, I mean, we all are attracted. I'm very attracted to the landscape, and I'm very attracted to the natural landscape, if there's anything different than the landscape being unnatural. But anyway,
You should see my bedroom.
yeah. So, and I think we also have to come to terms with the notion that everything's been photographed. So the uniqueness of a photograph, how unique is a photograph, no matter who's photographing it now, of any place in time. And I guess the only thing we can say is that not everybody has had every experience in every place, and not everyone has seen every photograph. So therefore, that knowledge and understanding is that at some point in time, someone who has never seen anything relative to this particular image may have an experience that makes them feel good about it, even though this would be the first time they've seen it, even though you might have 10,000 other versions of this same perspective. So I just think that's.
Yeah, this reminds me of the Monterey splash screen.
Okay.
The
Interesting.
iOS Monterey?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a compliment.
No, absolutely. I take it as such. So, and I just think it's yeah. So landscapes, love it. And I guess I wanted to challenge everyone because I think what I wanted to do is just put this in there. Go ahead.
Sorry. Also, like you were saying, every what you capture means something to you. But like, like the movies, these analogies I've said over and over. 100 people see the image, 100 people get something different out of it. Because I shot a dead sea turtle, big old thing, stinking up the beach. And I was like, well, because I got a series of dead stuff for I don't know why. But a friend of mine took a look at it, and she's like, I want to print. I was like, well, it's a dead sea turtle. She's like, it speaks to me. It means so. I was like, okay. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. You were doing your that was during your REI modeling day.
No. And I think I wanted to put this in there because what I don't usually do is I don't usually show myself, but I think not having to say I'm black, but just to show that I am without having to say it, I think is important in and of itself. So of the two images I showed you, I did this intentionally. I showed you the two images first before I showed you the person who took the photograph.
Okay, cool.
And I think that's to some degree we have a predisposition to visualizing who took the photograph. right? And it may not be a person of color if you see a landscape, right?
Right. All right.
So it's
Now,
always,
this is a self-portrait.
it is a self-portrait.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing is I wonder, would someone recognize this as a self-portrait, or would they wonder who took the photograph of this guy with the tent?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if anyone out there has any illusions as to someone being with me taking the photograph, they're wrong. This was a solo hiking trip, okay, and everything was done on my own. And the experience was kind of interesting because I'll tell you, this was about 200, maybe 300 yards from the roadway, because I walked in about 200, 300 yards just to, get away from it all. And I just plopped the tent down there and spent the night.
Wow.
Um,
A lot of stars, huh?
a lot of stars and a lot of noise at night, things crawling around and moving, and you have no clue
Wow.
what it is, but footsteps in the dark.
Cool. Cool.
Okay.
Nice. Thank you for sharing those, Ken. I really, really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the perspective too.
Yeah.
Mark, you got anything, or can we keep rolling?
We can keep going.
All right. Next up, what does it mean to be a Black photographer? We're it. What does it mean to you, Mark?
Well, I think, quite honestly, being a Black photographer means that you have a couple of things going on today. Right now, if you want to aspire to be a Black photographer, and the idea you'd mentioned, the idea of being a photographer uh, who's Black photographer for Black first, photographer second, seems to be the number one idea. There are a tremendous number of opportunities today for people to show their work. I mean, there's all the social media platforms, self-publishing, all of that. For me, being a Black photographer changed over time, because originally it was an aspiration to be a photographer, and I figured, quite honestly, being Black would be evident pretty much as you mentioned, walked into offices, as I got assignments, as I did the assignments. And so for me, it was about getting assignment photography. It wasn't so much about walking around the neighborhood and documenting people in the neighborhood. And so in that way, I'm more Gordon Parks than Roy DeCarava. I think a lot of photographers now are a lot more Roy DeCarava, where they're telling our stories on a much more local, more casual basis, where they're getting a certain level of what people tend to call authenticity. But I think the work that I do has a level of authenticity to it also, but I cover people when they're having special times in their lives. In this particular case, these are two siblings. They're both graduating at this point from, in these photos, from different Ivy League schools. They're the kids of someone I went to elementary school with, and I was blessed in order to be able to, capture these moments for this family, because it's really, they have two kids and they both went to Ivy League schools, and it's really fantastic that the kids went to the schools and they graduated, and you can read the ring of the young man on the right. It says Yale, and the young lady on the left, that was from Princeton. If you go to the next photo, this was for a cover of a magazine, and this was about 10 years ago, maybe. But the point is that this was for a spring summer edition, so you've got the blossoms, and also covered summer, because in this particular magazine they advertise a lot of summer camp. So you get a sense of the kids that play. It's not, the one kid's got a bicycle, the other one's got sort of a blue basketball under his arm, and the young lady has a hula hoop. If you go to the next one.
I really enjoy this image. I don't know what it is about it. It's very haunting.
Well, in the first two, I had to do some fill lighting. Right, it's much more evident in the second one, the cover. And this one, this is a live photo. I didn't have to add any lighting whatsoever. This is a photo from the introduction of a young person during a pageant. and they went on stage. Their escort is escorting them off the stage after they presented themselves to the audience. And this is the lighting that was actually at the pageant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to
Nice.
the next,
Nice.
right, so that's not my lighting at all in that particular image. And this, two toddlers, you know, my kids. But the idea is that you're taking photographs of people in special times. I mean, they'll never be toddlers again. And there's only a short period of time when, you know, all your kids are little, you know. At a certain point, they all become very, you know, various ages. You know, one will be in middle school, another one will be in high school, and then they're all kind of clumped together in high school again. And then before you know it, that's it. But at this particular time, they're both toddlers. There are no infants. And so we got to get a really nice portrait for our family of the two of them. Next photo.
That's it, Mark. You said 4.
Oh, that's it. Okay. Well, basically what I'm saying is that as a Black photographer, for me, I try to take pictures of people in more aspirational moments rather than what they are if I just bump into them. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. It just means that that's not my particular interest. My particular interest is creating great moments so that these people will have images that they want to look at themselves later on in life. And that's really it. I think I've said everything I have to say about being a Black photographer. I mean, there are just so many more opportunities to begin and to show. I don't know if there are that many more opportunities to have advertising. There probably are. And publishing is a little different because publishing itself is kind of diminished. So I don't really know how, so it's sort of broken down into social media and advertising and journalism. And I don't know how it's been for advertising, for our journalism. But I will say this, for photography in general, it seems like hard news is being replaced by doorbells, drones, and cell phones rather than photographers going after the fact to get still images, unless you have great editorial work being done on big topics like the unfortunate shooting that we had in Buffalo and the Ukraine war and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Long format news feature stories are it. I'm still a big fan of that. Like CBS Sunday mornings, their stuff is just, they just go into a story and they spend time there. Those stories really resonate to me. You know. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
No, well, like I said, all I was going to say is for the idea of our stories, you know, in quotation marks, our stories. There are tremendous ways to get our stories out. The question is, as a Black photographer, you know, what aspect of our stories do you want to present? And you know that's when where the real challenge is to differentiate yourself as a photographer. Are you producing work that is specifically yours, or is it indistinguishable from someone who's lived in the past, or is it indistinguishable from people who are current? So it's very difficult to do that, but that's just the challenge of being a professional. So
Yeah.
But
And
capturing, go ahead, Ken.
the intended audience. Who is your intended audience as a Black photographer?
Okay.
That really is paramount important. It's probably the be all to end all, to be honest with you, if you want to answer that question. Because if you're going to say that my audience is Black and Black only, that is a unique set of circumstances that you're putting yourself into.
Right, but there is an audience for that now.
There is an audience.
But when
yes.
we started, the three of us started, I can safely say that there was a very limited audience for that because there were only so many publications. And they had to present not only as we are, but also international perspectives of how things are in other nations. And also they had to present aspirational perspectives, you know, that you don't really hear a lot as a generalization now. You know, we hear a lot about individuals who have succeeded, but you don't hear a lot about, you know, the entire African American group, you know, really having monolithic take on education or a monolithic take on affluence. It's much more, once things are a little bit going a little bit more for an individual, you have that individual's perspective being presented.
Okay. Yeah, but like you said, it's also capturing moments in time, and adding the Black or African American experience. I don't feel it's something that can be ignored, but no matter what it is, there it is. You know what I mean? It's just you're not going to be anything else but. Sorry, that's it. And what you see and what you show is it's reflective of you, and it's also reflective of the culture. And social media just changed the whole game. I was listening to this gentleman on a TED Talk, and he said he was not a really good businessman, but um, he knew the psychology of reaching out to people. And when he realized that he came up with the product, and he realized not to try to sell it directly to the public, he tried to sell it to the influencers who were better at reaching the public than he was. And once he got a hold of the influencers, he went from talking to maybe 50 people with his flyers to like 100,000 people, how many followers that influencer has, and it's game changing.
Well, I mean, that was the philosophy behind having Michael Jordan wear the sneakers, right? The Nike sneakers. He was the influencer, and as the guy who would wear the sneakers that were banned by the NBA, and that I just got that from a documentary. I'll tell you that.
Okay, it looks like we've run into that situation again where Greg has become frozen in time. So we want to thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions regarding today's conversation, and I hope you do, please leave a comment in the comments section. We'd like to get back to you and just have a further discussion on this. This is only part one of a discussion that we're going to have. So there's going to be a part two coming up and maybe even a part three, because we realize that this is just not something you can do in one 30-minute session. But thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Three Black Pratt Grads. Thank you, Greg, for opening the session. I'm here with my friends Mark Skinner, and I'm Kenneth Nelson, and we'll see you next time.